Have you ever arrived at the airport feeling totally prepared, and then a long security line turns into a gate change, a half-mile walk, and your legs are already done before you even board? I've watched that exact thing happen to my own parents, and it has nothing to do with how experienced you are. And if you're an older traveler, those little surprises hit harder, and they can drain you before the trip even starts. So in this video, I'll cover what to do at home, at TSA, at the gate, and on the plane. And don't skip tip 9 if you use a cane or walker. It may not count against your carry-on. But first, let's start with the easiest before you leave home win: compression socks, and why they're the simplest upgrade for swelling and circulation. If you've ever landed, stood up, and felt like your ankles were heavier than they were when you took off, this is why I'm bringing up DVT and leg swelling right now. A lot of people hear DVT and assume it's only a problem on long international flights. But the bigger issue is simpler: staying still for hours. The CDC points out that travel over about 4 hours, plane, car, bus, or train, can increase blood clot risk. So here's the practical move, especially if you tend to swell: wear compression socks on travel day. Look for knee-high, graduated compression. For travel comfort, 15 to 20 millimeter hair drying is a common beginner-friendly range. Put them on before you leave the house and keep them on through the travel day. Fit check: snug, not painful, no numb toes, no deep rings. And there's one safety note I want you to know: compression socks aren't right for everyone. If you have pad or serious circulation issues, talk to your doctor or healthcare provider before using them. Next, seat choice. And this matters more than people realize. When you're booking at home, aim for an aisle seat if you can. You can stand up for circulation, handle bathroom trips without climbing over anyone, and you're not stuck negotiating every time you need to move. If you didn't get one, maybe you booked late and got a middle seat. Handle it before everything gets chaotic at the gate. Walk up early, be friendly, and say, "Hi." If any aisle seat opens up, I'd really appreciate it. I need to get up a few times for circulation and bathroom access. Now, the 2 seat traps that disappoint people. One is sitting right next to the bathroom because it seems convenient. On many planes, that spot gets the most foot traffic, the most noise, and the most bumping. Close to the restroom can be great. Parked right beside it can be exhausting. The other trap is the very last row. On a lot of aircraft, it reclines less or doesn't recline at all, and it can feel tighter. That's a bad surprise to discover after takeoff. And there's one downside of aisle seats nobody warns you about: you're closer to the aisle traffic. So keep an eye on your elbow and keep your feet tucked in during boarding, because bags and hips don't always miss. Now, the medication mistake I hear all the time: it's in my carry-on, so I'm fine. And this is where a lot of passengers get blindsided, because gate check happens. Full flight, small overhead bins, late boarding group, your carry-on can get taken at the gate and sent onto the plane. And if that bag gets delayed or misplaced, for senior travelers, missing essential medication isn't just annoying, it can turn into a problem you don't want to troubleshoot in an airport. So here's the safer setup. Keep essential meds in your personal item, the smaller bag that stays with you under the seat. And whenever you can, keep meds in the original bottles or packaging with the label. It avoids confusion and makes life easier if anyone ever has questions. Do yourself one more favor. Keep a written list of your medications and doses in your wallet. If you're tired, stressed, or you need help communicating quickly, that list can save a lot of time. And it's not just medication. That same underseat bag is where anything can't miss belongs. Hearing aid batteries, spare glasses, medical devices, anything you'd hate to lose access to mid-flight. Try this on your next trip, then come back and tell me in the comments. What's the one item you refuse to let out of your sight when you fly? That dry mouth, scratchy throat feeling in the air? A lot of times it starts way earlier, right in the terminal, because you're moving, waiting, rechecking gates, and somehow water becomes the thing you do later. If you're over 60, that's when it hits harder. You can be doing everything right and still land feeling tired and headachy just because you didn't sip consistently. So here's the easiest habit that fixes it. Bring an empty reusable bottle through TSA. The second you're past security, fill it at a water station. Now you've got water in your hand while you're standing in line, walking to the gate, and waiting to board, instead of hoping the drink cart shows up fast enough. And there's a bonus. You're not relying on plain water. A lot of reports have found aircraft tank water isn't always the cleanest. So for peace of mind, stick with the bottle you filled in the terminal. And if you buy a drink on board, go sealed. Bottled water or a can. The goal is simple. Don't wait until you feel bad to drink. Start early, sip steadily. And this matters for a bigger reason. Even if your packing is perfect, the airport is where most passengers lose the most energy. And the next section is where you get a few "why didn't anyone tell me this" shortcuts. Did you know airport wheelchair help isn't only for people who can't walk at all? If long distances or long lines wipe you out, listen. This is something you can absolutely request, and it helps a lot of older travelers. You don't have to be disabled enough to use the help you genuinely need. On flights to or from the US, the Department of Transportation says airlines are required to provide disability assistance as you move through the airport, including from the terminal entrance or vehicle drop-off point, through the security checkpoint, to your gate, and onto the aircraft. When you request it, the magic is being specific. Say exactly what kind of help you need, like wheelchair assistance from curb to gate, or escort assistance. I can walk short distances, but I can't stand in long lines. That way, you're not accidentally asking for more than you need, and they're not guessing. And just to be clear, use it when you genuinely need it. A lot of needs are invisible, and this service exists for that, so you can travel with dignity, not struggle in silence. Now, here's the next problem spot where people over 60 get rushed the most. Security. There's a program that can make that whole process feel a lot more human. Security stress? This is where a lot of people start feeling rushed, especially if you move a little slower, deal with pain, use medical devices, or just don't love being barked through steps. TSA Cares is made for that. It's a free program that can connect you with a trained passenger support specialist at the checkpoint, so you're not trying to figure everything out while the line stacks up behind you. If you want it set up, request it at least 72 hours before your flight, either online through the TSA Cares form or by calling 855-787-2227. And if you're already close to travel day, calling is still your best shot. One important expectation: this isn't about skipping screening. You still do the process. This just gives you a calmer pace and someone guiding you through it. Even without setting anything up, you can walk up and say, "I may need a little extra time," or ask, "Can I get a passenger support specialist?" It can change the whole tone of the checkpoint. And after security is done, the next moment that gets chaotic fast is boarding, because the aisle turns into a traffic jam in seconds, and pre-boarding can save you a lot of stress. Pre-boarding can be a game changer if you need extra time, because boarding is when the aisle gets tight, people rush, and that's when bumps and stress happen. One important clarification: this isn't about age by itself. It's about need. If mobility, pain, balance, or a cane walker means you need more time to get settled, you can self-identify and request pre-boarding. Here's the simple line to use before the crowd forms. "Hi, could I pre-board? I need a little extra time to get seated and stow my cane." Policies do vary by airline and country, especially outside US rules, so search that airline's special assistance page and use their wording. And on some airlines with open seating, it may be called extra time boarding. But the idea is the same: getting you on calmly and safely. Because one calm boarding can change the whole flight. Have you ever requested pre-boarding and had it go smoothly or sideways? Drop your story in the comments. What if you step off a plane and realize your next gate is basically in another zip code? Your legs are already tired, and time is definitely not on your side. Connections are where airports love to test your stamina. If you fatigue easily, this is the moment you want a plan that doesn't involve power walking through terminals. If you're requesting assistance for long distances, make sure it covers every connection, not just the first gate. When you book or call, ask them to note it clearly. Can you note wheelchair or escort assistance for all connections? Meet me at the arrival gate? That last part matters, because if nobody is scheduled to meet you at the arrival gate, you can end up standing there wondering where the help is while boarding time keeps ticking. And this actually happened to my parents. The help was set up for the first leg, but nobody was waiting for the connection. They tried to just walk it anyway, but halfway there you could see the pressure kick in. Ever since then, I treat connections like a separate request, not something that automatically carries over. So confirm it before travel day, and if you have a tight connection, remind the gate agent before you board the first flight. It's a small request that can save you from the hardest walk of the entire trip. If you travel with a cane, walker, or crutches, remember this. That's an assistive medical device, not a comfort item, and it doesn't count toward your carry-on limit under US rules. Don't check it by default. Ask if it can be stowed in cabin first, and if it can't be stowed safely, gate check it. And here's a detail most people don't know. Aircraft with 100 more than seats are required to have priority in-cabin space for a manual folding wheelchair if it fits. Now, sometimes it truly can't be safely stowed in the cabin. In that case, the move is to gate check it and request it be returned as close as possible to the aircraft door to the maximum extent possible. Here's a polite line that works without sounding confrontational. Hi, this is my assistive device. It shouldn't count toward my carry-on limit. Can it be stowed in the cabin? If it can't be stowed safely, can we gate check it and have it returned at the aircraft door? And I've got one small tip for you. Keep that bag medical only. If you mix in personal items, the airline can treat it like regular baggage. And once you've protected your device, the flight itself gets easier, because the next tips are about comfort in the cabin and how to get help without depending on luck. That feeling when you're trying to muscle your bag into the overhead bin while the crew just stands there? Yeah, it doesn't feel great. But don't take it personally, because on some flights, they're not allowed to lift bags. Either way, there's a smarter way to handle it. Here's the rule of thumb. If you can't lift your bag smoothly at home in one controlled motion, it's too heavy for an overhead bin on a crowded plane. Make it a one-lift bag, not a two-arm deadlift. And keep your essentials in the underseat so you're not reaching up over and over. If you do need help, ask before you start wrestling with it. Hi, if you're able, could you help me place this bag up there? And you know what? Seats can be their own little surprise. Sometimes the recline button feels ridiculously firm, or the tray table takes way more effort than it should. If it's turning into a mini workout, don't keep fighting it. Hit the call button and say, "Sorry, this seat is giving me a hard time. Could you help me for a second?" With that handled, the next comfort problem shows up fast: staying warm. The next tip will help you avoid that shivering, freezing feeling at 35,000 feet. A lot of people assume pillows and blankets are just part of the deal. So when the cabin gets cold at 35,000 feet, they sit there and tough it out, waiting for something that might not even come. And even if a blanket does show up, you don't always know how fresh or clean it is. That matters more when you're older, especially if your skin is sensitive or you've got any health stuff going on. On a lot of short domestic flights, the turnaround is fast. Everyone's hustling to get the plane cleaned and ready for the next boarding. And because of that, blanket handling can be inconsistent. Sometimes they're truly fresh. Sometimes they just look fresh. And sometimes you only realize the difference the hard way. There are plenty of reports of people opening a sealed blanket and still finding little leftovers: hair, crumbs, stains. I'm not taking that chance. So the best move is bringing your own lightweight backup, something thin and packable. A small travel blanket, a big scarf, or a light jacket you can wrap around your chest and neck. Keep it in the underseat bag so you can grab it anytime without doing the overhead bin gymnastics. Because staying warm isn't just comfort. When you're warm, you sleep better, your muscles stay looser, and you step off the plane feeling less stiff and way less drained. Now let's talk about staying loose mid-flight. If you stiffen up easily, this part matters more than you think. And it doesn't require aisle laps. Here's a simple seat routine. Do 3 tiny moves, ankle circles, flex and point, and gentle heel raises, about 10 seconds each. It's quick, it's discreet, and it keeps your legs from going into statue mode. Then use a timing cue for standing. Aim for a quick stand and reset about once an hour or so, and more often on longer flights, only when the aisle is actually clear. Best timing: after the cart passes and the aisle clears, seatbelt sign off. One etiquette rule that also makes your life easier: don't camp in the galley. That's the crew's workspace, and it crowds fast. If you want to stretch, do it near your row when there's room. You'll feel better, and you won't get caught in that awkward "am I in the way" moment. Movement keeps you loose in the air, but the moment the plane parks is where a lot of people get stressed the most. Stick with me for the final tip, because getting off calmly is how you finish the trip feeling steady instead of drained. That moment the plane parks is when a lot of people feel it. Stiff legs, a little wobble, and an aisle that instantly turns into a standing room only line. You don't have to join the rush. The safest move is also the simplest. Stay seated, let the aisle clear, then stand when you actually have space and balance. You'll get off either way, just with less stress on your body. If you requested wheelchair or escort assistance, it should be arranged to meet you. And if it's not there, here's what to do. Before landing, tell a flight attendant, "I requested wheelchair escort assistance. Could you radio ahead so they meet me at the door?" Then, if nobody is waiting when the door opens, don't panic and don't force it. Stay seated and ask the crew or the gate staff to page assistance. It keeps you steady, and it's especially helpful if you're trying to make a connection. That last 10 minutes doesn't have to be a scramble. A calm exit is often the safer exit, and it's the best way to finish the trip feeling steady instead of depleted. All right, before you go, here's the simplest takeaway. Flying after 60 gets easier when you stop relying on luck and start relying on a few smart defaults. If one tip stuck with you, tell me which one in the comments, and also tell me what part of flying is toughest for you right now. Walking distance? Security? Staying comfortable on the plane? I read those, and it helps me plan the next video. If this helps, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who always tries to just push through. They don't have to. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.